Shalom, Zion. It is really good to be able to be back behind these cameras, and it's been a minute after, of course, the big Passover, and then there's the changing of the seasons and things. A lot of things are happening, and the things that are happening, we give our praise that they are positive and good. And I pray that everything is good where you are, Zion. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Well, the purpose of this video is I want to talk about a concept that's on my mind. I've actually written some notes, and I'm developing a more in-depth study on this, and of course, I'll be bringing you those studies as soon as I, finish hearing from you and working them out. But the one of the themes that I am going to be dealing with, of course, is this idea of royalty. And we're going through the book of Proverbs, and we're talking about what it means to be kings, what it means to be queens, and what it means to be royalty. And I understand that watching these videos, many of the people who watch these videos, some of the things that I mentioned is hard for you to hear, and that may be because you can't hear it. But there are those that can hear, and you're going to listen. And when I mention these things, I just want to prepare your heart. They might cause a little short knee-jerk reaction in the beginning, but ultimately, the Ruach is going to speak to your soul. It's going to speak to your Ruach. And as Abaya speaks to your heart, you're going to be able to see that what I'm going to say is going to bear witness to what you know already on the inside. And so first of all, let's just get the concept of royalty and deal with that real quick. It's very difficult even to talk to a people that don't have their own land, that are not living in their homeland. And of course, you know the story of us having come through captivity, and many of us still living in the lands of our captivity, and at the same time not recognizing a nation or nationhood or anything like that. And then someone like me said, but you're royalty and you're from the house of Israel. And it's very difficult sometimes to grasp that concept. But it's not just a concept, it is truth. And one of the things that I've been noticing as I study scripture is this idea, when you are royalty, when you start to realize it, then there is a higher life that you begin to live. It's a transcendent life. It's a life above. It's a life that's very transforming. It's a life that is a life that affords you freedom, no matter your situation or circumstance. It's very liberating when you understand who you are and whose you are, and it's also very empowering to know who you are and whose you are. And so you wake up to the truth and you start studying scripture, and then you realize that you are the scattered royalty of the house of Israel. And you may look around and say, well, my situation and my circumstances does not necessarily point to royalty, and I understand it. But the concept I want to get over, or that I am dealing with now, is this issue of honor. And we left off talking about honor, and in our last King and Queen series, we started talking about honor. And I want to continue that idea of honor, because obviously this is information and wisdom that is passed down to us from our foreparents, who were also kings and queens. So if there is anyone that should be able to talk to us about honor and royalty, it is definitely, besides Hamashiach, because he's the greatest of all kings, well, of course, we give him honor and glory. Oh my goodness. And we love our Messiah, Yahushua Hamashiach. But in the context of our study, we're talking about King David. So King David becomes biblically for us the picture of royalty, and he is the highest picture of royalty other than our King Yahushua. And as an earthly king, and he passes down wisdom, and that's what we need. We need that wisdom and knowledge and understanding that he's passing down. And one of the things that he's talking about that seemed to grab my attention, and I'm sharing with you, is this idea of honor. And then he ties honor in with, first of all, honoring Yah. And then he says that we are to honor Yah, and he tells us how. He says, with all of your substance. And the last time we talked, I dealt with that whole Cain and Abel situation where there was a conflict about substance and what to bring Yah. And then the first fruits of all your increase, which means that Yah is always to get the first part. And the king is instructing us to do that. Now, remember, if this is a king, and he is a king, David, and he's talking to a prince at this time who was Solomon, and you're now talking about people who are obviously, if this is the king's house, they're wealthy. And the picture is a picture of wealth. It's a picture of, obviously, King David and the nation of Israel during the time of the raising of Solomon was at a position of wealth. They were self-sufficient. We find out later that Solomon had navies, and of course we had a host or an army, and we had land, and we had temples, and we had, our doctors, and we had lawyers, and it was a complete nation. And of course, to be the Malek, or the leaders of the nation, then it's obvious that there's wealth. So if you have the wealth of a nation, then why would David talk about honoring Yah to a person who has already got something, who's already wealthy? And of course talk about honoring him with like first fruits, which is very interesting too. Because there is a principle. And before you have a knee-jerk reaction, just listen to what I'm saying. I do believe that the ideal situation for the house of Israel, and I'm talking now royalty, is that royalty, no matter where you are and what your circumstance, royalty by its very nature and by its very design is supposed to be wealthy. For royalty and wealthy go together. So you have, wherever there is, and check the history, wherever there is royalty, you also see wealth. And most of the time, or a lot of times, when you see wealth, some kind of way attached to it is royalty. Not always, but for sure the other way around. Royalty and wealth go together. So let's just do a quick, just to help you see it. Let's just do a quick experiment. So if you talk about the king of, and then put any place you want to, you can take the king of any nation, and obviously he's going to put an equal. It's going to be, that there's going to be royalty there. You can take African nations. If he's a king, he's going to be the royalty. He's going to be the wealthy one. If you go to England, the king of England, you're going to see a person with wealth. the King of Wales, you're going to see a person with wealth. You can see that, or you see the Prime Minister, or you see the whatever. These are people in these positions that they always have connected to them intrinsically. Connected to them is this idea of wealth, so that royalty and wealth are connected. Okay. Now, so I think that's one of the reasons that it's difficult for us in the diaspora, and us who have been scattered, and those of us who have come through the slave trade and are still living in the land of our captivity, and on the bottom of the economic realm. I believe that's one of the reasons that it's difficult for us to believe that we're wealthy, because tied to the idea of royalty is wealth. So when you look at yourself and you say, I'm not wealthy, I can't be royalty. When you do that, I mean, it's sort of natural. You go, man, I wish I was royalty. If I was royalty, and then you fill in the blanks, and it's going to have to do with some kind of economic stability. So, as long as people are equate wealth with a royalty, then, and I mean, in a way it's true, then we have to then maybe take another look at wealth. And when we get in the studio, I'm going to break this down a lot deeper. But for now, I need you to know that when I talk about wealth, I am really not talking about rich. I believe that there is a play on words, even though we use those words interchangeably. We use the wealthy and the rich. We use those words interchangeably. Everybody does it. But there is a difference between the wealthy, even, and the rich. When we think, again, and again, I'm speaking to royalty. I'm going to keep saying that. When we think about true royalty, immediately your mind goes to wealth. You don't necessarily immediately think about, I should say, like United States dollars. You know, when you talk about a person being wealthy, you talk about a king. We're not really talking about quarters and nickels and dimes and 50-cent pieces. We're not talking about that. When we talk about wealth connected to royalty, normally we think beyond money. They do have money, but their wealth is beyond money. Their wealth is beyond, I should say, dollars. And believe me, I've already began to write all this stuff into bite-sized lessons for Israel. So I will revisit this wealth versus money, or wealth versus riches. I'll revisit this in another video. But for now, I just want you to understand that, or to come to grips with the idea, or to maybe see it for the first time, that we automatically equate wealth with royalty. That if you're royalty, then you're wealthy. Now, if that's true, and it is true, then we got to discover what is wealth. We have to say, okay, wait. I'm royalty, yes, but I'm broke. Yes. How can I be royalty broke? So again, you're looking at what? You're looking at something that's relative. You're broke compared to who? You're broke compared to what? And the same idea would be used for riches. That's funny, that's who she just asked me. We're on our way to a Hebrew class. But riches, you're going to compare yourself to someone else who's rich. I want all of you who watch these videos to begin to put your mind in a different place when it comes to wealth. First, understand that you may be a lot more wealthy than you think you are. You may be a lot more wealthy than you think you are. And number two, it's a good chance that you may not actually understand what the definition of wealth is. And so these are some of the things that I want to discover. I want us to see as royalty. So let's go back to the Proverbs now. So when in the Proverbs, it is just assumed that Solomon is going to have barns. Oh, no, you didn't do. Yes, I did. Now, what y'all think about this? It's assumed you're gonna build barns. Lord, yes. Why? Because you got storage. For what? For your wealth. Honor Yah with your substance and with the first fruit of all your increase. So shall your barns be filled. You got to have a barn. You're going to build the barns. You got to already have the barns. Whether or not there's anything in the barns right now, the fact that you are wealthy means you got to have a barn. You got to go build a barn somewhere. You got to have a place to put some stuff. Why? Because as royalty, your wealth will come with your royalty. But you have to see it first. You have to know it. So your barns. Now, again, I'm just flipping this concept. Think about it. Many of us haven't even thought about having our barns prepared so that if wealth does come, there'll be a place to put it. Number two, he says, then your wine cellars will burst forth with new wine. And I already dealt with that subject, so I won't get into it again. But the wine cellar represented excess. I'm from the country. Excess. That means more. So when we talk about that which is in excess, it means like when you can actually use your land for water, use water and land to grow grapes, not necessarily to eat, but to make wine. It represents excess. And then, of course, wine is a symbol of joy also. So he says two things about about when you honor Yah first. He says your barns will be full, which means you're going to have barns and you're going to fill them. And your wine cellars will burst forth with new wine, which means that you're going to have a wine cellar and you will have an abundance. Why? Because when you honor Yah as royalty, then part of the honoring Yah as royalty, Yah then grants you wealth. And I started running these verses all the way through the Bible, and I started seeing something. I was like, wait a minute. That is a connection everywhere. So it's situation, Yah blesses, then we honor him with the best, the first fruit, and not of all of our increase. And with everything that we have, we put him first. With the best, we put him first. By putting him first, it means we're giving him the part that we want. Yeah, we've been waiting all year for them apples, and we want to be the first one to bite the apple. He said, no, I need to take the first batch and bring it and offer it to the Levites. let them have the first batch. You have to say, that's hard to do, especially when we've been waiting all year, or whether it be grapes, or maybe the first watermelon. I don't know. I'm using an example of when you're waiting for that which is first. Normally, you want that one for yourself. So when you start talking about honoring Yah with it, it makes it already very important because it's something that you want. So you say, take that which you want and then give it to Yah, or we know that give it to the work of the kingdom, or give it to support the work of the kingdom. And I'm not just saying that because I have a work in the kingdom. I also give of my substance, and I also support ministry with the first fruits of my increase. So I'm not excluded from anything that I'm saying. I am included. He said, then I'll fill your barns, and your wine cellars will burst forth with new wine. It's interesting because in Malachi he says, when you do that, I'm going to open the windows of heaven, and I'm going to pour you out a blessing that you won't have room enough to receive it. And then he says in Matthew, when you give, it shall be given unto you. Well, men give unto your bosom, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will men give to you. And then you say, okay, then the man went out and sowed seed, and seed fell here, but some hit good soil and brought forth some 30, some 60, some 100-fold, and you go, wait a minute, 100 times more? So you got these concepts of wealth that's tied to royalty. And because we are royalty, we find ourselves in this, and I'm almost done with this short video. We find ourselves in this, what's it called when it's like a dual existence. I'm royalty and I'm struggling. I'm royalty and I'm broke. I'm royalty and I'm in the hood. I'm royalty and I can't hardly pay the rent. I'm royalty and I drive a bucket. I'm royalty and I can barely afford to try to go to school. I'm royalty, and and we could go on and on. So these studies in royalty is going to help you see something. And what is that? First of all, we got to see the difference between wealth and riches. I think I'm going to end this video with this, and then we'll dig way deeper, because I know right now, when this message goes out all over the world, people are going to be like, man, there you go talking about. Well, look, it ain't for you then. This is for the kings and queens. But there you go talking about money. I ain't talking to you, Mr. Poor Man, who that's all you want, and your God is money. Your Elohim is money, so I'm not talking to you either. I'm talking to kings and queens that can hear me, and they know what I'm talking about. They know what the things I'm saying is true. I'm going to give you some things right now that I want you to think about when I talk about wealth and why we are supposed to be wealthy as royalty. And I'm not talking about riches now, I'm talking about wealth. I keep saying that because there's a difference. I will explain it in another video. But for now, I did a survey, or I went on, of course, online, and I pulled down a bunch of websites, and I was just trying to understand, to bring to you this idea of like, okay, so what do royalty consider, or what does royalty consider wealthy? What is wealth to royalty? And do you know the answers to that would surprise you? I'm not talking about rich people. I'm talking about wealthy people. I'm talking about rulers and kings and potentates and prime ministers and things like that. People like that. People who have real wealth. I said, okay. Before I did that, I said, let me think what the average one of us living in the diaspora and living in this she's like, where's your phone? I'm trying to call you. I'm making a video. Okay. Before I did that, I said, okay, to most of us, what do we consider to be wealth? And I just listed a couple of them. Okay, so the first one I listed was, most of us think that wealth is money. That's the number one priority, so we just got to get money. The second thing when it comes to us is, when you say like a person, you know, and you say that person right there is rich, but you say why? Well, there's a wealthy why. And look at the car that they're driving. So number one pursuit for most of us is money. Then the second thing we want is a car, a new car, a nice car, a fancy car, an expensive car. We gotta have Rolls Royce and Lamborghini to show people that we are wealthy. Then what else? Number three, talking about us. Number three, it will probably have to be clothes, unfortunately. So once we start getting money, we gotta wear, you know, Prada and Gucci and Smoochie and Nucci and all these other people gotta wear their names because we believe that they're wealthy, so we gotta put other people's names on us, and then that makes us feel wealthy like them. So we buy name brands, which is somebody's name, so we put someone else's name on our body, or somebody else's name on our eyes for our glasses, or somebody else's name on our shoulder for our purse. And it makes us feel wealthy like them. And then, what else do we do? Oh, yeah, of course, after clothes is be jewelry. So wealth to us is when you can go down and get some jewelry. I got rings, and I got chains, and bracelets, and nose rings, earring, bracelets, you know, diamond this, gold this, blah, 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 blah. And again, and look, I'm really getting ready to cut the video short, but watch. I'm gonna go maybe one more. Food. When we think of wealth, we think of food. We think like being able to sit down anywhere and eat what we want to eat, and don't have to worry about what the ticket's gonna say. And then we start ordering all types of food we can't pronounce and taking pictures of it and stuff like that. And in our mind, if we can achieve that, we are, and not achieve it, just if a person is being able to do that, we automatically say that person's wealthy. And then we say, why? Look what they're driving, look what they're wearing, look what they're eating. And in our brain, that automatically equates to wealth. Of course, our people, unfortunately, we also like drugs. So when we're able to buy as much drugs as we want, and that's very unfortunate. And then down the list is probably like education and maybe some more noble things. But those are like our top. Now watch what the wealthy said. Y'all ready? This is what the wealthy said. And believe it or not, I'm really cutting the video short now. But this is what came up among the wealthy. The wealthy said that the wealthiest person is a person who is healthy. I was like, health was number one. Not money, not cars, none of that. To the wealthy, health is number one. Your health. This ain't what they said. Number one way a person looks at it, or that wealthy people determine whether or not someone is wealthy, is they look at their health. Are they healthy? Number two. Like, come on, no. Number two. Family. Like, what did you say? Family. To the wealthy, health and family is more important than money. Family. Well, health first. Health, family. Remember, I'm talking about royalty. Like kings, queens, all that. They're going to make sure, one, that they're in good health. And number two, they make sure that their family ties stay strong. Because they understand that true wealth is in the family. It's in their health. Now, after they look at health and family, then money. Money is like third on their list on wealth, when it comes to wealthy people. And then after money, let me look on my little, then they looked at, I'm gonna go ahead of myself. Health, family, / house. Their home. Like land. Number one. Securing their health, securing their family with a home and with land. And then, of course, then it comes to money, which we'll talk about that later. But they are more interested in investment and returns. The true wealthy do not gamble. They don't gamble. They study and they research and they make investments. And they make investments for the purpose of a return. And another way they measure wealth is through something we would never thought about. Optimism. Maury, what? You heard me? The optimistic. So when they think of wealth, they think of, a person who's very optimistic is a person who's very wealthy, because his optimism keeps him positive. But the poor become pessimistic to the wealthy. So they work hard at not ever becoming pessimistic. They want to always stay optimistic, because optimism or being optimistic is very wealthy. It's a sign of wealth. It's a sign of power, and it's a sign of hope. I can go on and on, but for now, I want you to see that many of the things that the world, or I should say, many of the things that the truly wealthy seek and value, Yah has actually already gave it to us. I keep telling you, we're the wealth, and we just have not unpacked our wealth. Hopefully, I'm gonna spend some time as we look at being a king and we look at being queens. We're gonna actually start unpacking that and see that we truly are the wealth of the world, and as a result, we gotta start living like it. Yes, even in captivity. Ooh-wee. I know I left a lot of loose ends on this video, Zion, but it's for thought. Just think about some of the things that I just said. and then ask Yah to show you how wealthy you really are, or the areas of your life that need to become more, that need help, where there's a deficit, so that he can fill it. Because wealth is not a bad word. Well, there's some bad people, but wealth itself, I believe, is the original design that Yah has for Israel. My mind is moving so fast. Like, why would he give them a lamb flowing with milk and honey and houses and lamb? Anyway, we'll get into all that in some later videos. One Love Zion, support the ark. If this video has helped to stimulate some thought, help you think about, help you try to see something in a different way, and if you might have been feeling this already was in the Ruach, support the work of the ark and continue to pray for us, that we can continue to help us realize who we are in Yah and what we have in him. It's truly amazing. Hallelujah. 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 Shalom.